Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy channel, and in this video, I'm going to be doing a little draft recap of a recent fantasy draft I had. In this league, it is a non-PPR league, so no points for catches, and it is a 12-team league. I should also mention this is a 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex, and yes, we do have a kicker and a defense, just to keep it traditional. I am recording this on August 26th, and we drafted, I think it was on August 14th, but nothing really crazy happened with my team, so everything should pretty much be fine. And there were a couple changes that happened in the league that I will go over and how that affected the ADP of some of the players that you're going to see in this video. Now, if you guys saw my last video, I did a mock draft in preparation for this real-life draft, and that mock draft went horrible in my opinion. I didn't like my team. I think Higgins for the Bengals was my wide receiver 2 or something like that, something crazy. It was really not pretty, but as you'll see in this draft, when it mattered the most, I was able to really play the ADP game nice. I was able to get a lot of players that I wanted, and this team is, in my opinion, 100 times better than the one that I mock drafted in that video. So I'm excited to show you guys this squad. I think we are ready to get started. So this is the League of Bros. It's a league that I'm in with some of my friends from high school and college. And what we do is we randomly pick the order in which we can select our draft position. So we randomly generate all the names, and then in that order, you can pick where you want to draft. So in 6 out of the 9 previous years, I had the first overall pick, and I was prepared to take the first overall pick again and get Christian McCaffrey. But right before I got to select my spot, my cup of tea took the first overall pick and took McCaffrey. So I went ahead and took pick number 6, and you won't believe who I was able to get at that spot. Well, maybe you will, because you can literally see the draft board. By the way, NFL.com, you need to fix your draft recap board. This is horrible. But we're going to fight through it, and we're going to recap this draft. So I think let's get right into it, right? Non-PPR, 12 teams. I think we're ready to go. McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Kamara. Nothing surprising there. But this is where the surprises begin. At pick number 4, Aaron Jones and Nick Chubb. Listen, first-round picks, absolutely. But to take them over Derrick Henry, to me, that's ludicrous. Usually you see Kamara and Derrick Henry at 3 and 4 after McCaffrey and Cook go off the board. So at number 6, I was hoping to get Ezekiel Elliott or Aaron Jones. When I saw Derrick Henry there, I knew I had to take him. Again, this is a non-PPR league, so Derrick Henry, as a runner, he's unbelievable. The only case against him is maybe his workload from the last couple seasons catches up to him, but he's not even human. He's an absolute maniac on the football field, so he's a freak of nature, so I had to take him. And I would never take Nick Chubb over him just because he's kind of like Derrick Henry light. But anyways, I got maybe the steal of the draft with the 6th overall pick. Moving forward, Ezekiel Elliott, who is someone that I envisioned drafting, goes with the next pick. Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Adams, Najee Harris, and Jonathan Taylor. So only 1 wide receiver in the first round. So no Travis Kelce quite yet, but he goes off the board with the first pick of the 2nd round. And then Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill. I probably would have taken Tyreek Hill, but Diggs is also amazing. I'm a Vikings fan, by the way, so I'm a big Stephon Diggs fan. Justin Jefferson, speaking of the Vikings, goes next. A.J. Brown, Antonio Gibson, and then my 2nd round pick. I had a tough decision to make here, guys. Really, it was between Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, and Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon I expect to be solid, and it is very important to grab running backs early in fantasy drafts because the running back value in drafts, it diminishes quickly, while receivers, their value tends to be pretty high, even to like the middle rounds. But I really ultimately was deciding between Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins because there was one running back that I wanted to fall to me in the 3rd round, and you'll see if I got him in a second. But I actually went with Calvin Ridley over DeAndre Hopkins. I love DeAndre Hopkins. He's a fantastic player. He'll be great for fantasy. But to me, Calvin Ridley, he represents such amazing upside. I think he'll have a crazy amount of touchdowns. He'll get all the targets in Atlanta. If you guys don't know, Julio Jones is no longer on the Atlanta Falcons. So Calvin Ridley will see a ton of targets. He's been amazing throughout his career so far. I see no reason for him to not have a crazy, insane year. So, to me, I took Calvin Ridley over Hopkins. Sue me. Next, we got DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon, Darren Waller, George Kittle. So, all the big 3 tight ends are already gone. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Before we move on to the 3rd round, I'm going to quickly plug a potential future video. I did trade for Calvin Ridley in a Dynasty League. So, if that is something you want to see about, you can kind of see the trade package that was involved with that and what I was thinking. when I made that trade, but that might be something I talk about in a different video. But moving on to the third round, we got J.K. Dobbins. Remember, this is a non-PPR league, so J.K. Dobbins, I don't expect him to be involved in the passing game, but it's not as big of a deal in a non-PPR league. There goes DeAndre Hopkins all the way in the third round. Pretty surprising. We got Mahomes off the board in the third round. I knew he'd go early. We got DK Metcalf, Julio Jones, and then the running back that I wanted to fall to me did, David Montgomery. I think he's a great value in the third round. I got him in like the 6th or 7th round last year in this same league, and that back stretch of the year got me to the title game. It got me through an injury to McCaffrey. I was without Will Fuller. I had some other injuries too. David Montgomery put the team on his back, got me to the championship game. We came in second, but he did all he could. And some detractors of David Montgomery will say, you know, he was only hot at the end of last year because he had an unbelievably easy schedule. But listen, if my RB2 can take advantage of those easy matchups and just win a week for me, sign me up, man. I think he'll have a solid year. I don't expect the Bears offense to be any worse than last year. So sign me up for David Montgomery in the third round as my RB2. His teammate Allen Robinson goes off the board next. Then McLaurin, Mike Evans, Josh Jacobs, and Miles Sanders. And then finally Keenan Allen. And one final thing before we move on to the next round is I was really glad that David Montgomery fell to me, because after him, to me, he was the end of that tier of running back where I'd be happy with him as my RB2. He really was a tier break for me. So you got Montgomery, then you got Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders. Chris Carson is kind of in that tier, but I'd rather have Montgomery. So I was really, really glad Montgomery fell to me. But in the fourth round, we got CeeDee Lamb, Robert Woods, Chris Carson, Josh Allen, Chris Godwin, Travis Etienne. Remember, we drafted a little bit before I'm recording this. So this injury had not occurred yet. Obviously, Travis Etienne out for the season for Jacksonville. James Robinson gets a bump in ADP. Should get a big workload in Jacksonville as the lead horse there. But with my fourth round pick, I went ahead and took Mike Davis. It's not a flashy pick, but it's another solid volume running back. He's the lead dog in Atlanta right now. Really no competition unless they sign someone off the street. But as of now, I expect Mike Davis to get the majority of the workload there. I don't expect the Falcons to be a run-heavy team, but he will get the majority of their rushes, I'm assuming as of now, unless news breaks. And I think he will be involved in the passing game when they inevitably need to air it out. So I think as my RB3 or as my flex, that's a really, really solid pick. Not much to say about that. So moving on, Kyler Murray, Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, Kareem Hunt, and Tyler Lockett. I was considering Kyler Murray. I didn't go quarterback early. I took the running back, and you'll see later that I did get a nice little value on quarterback a couple rounds later. So I am pretty secure at quarterback, as you'll see. So I didn't need to reach on Kyler Murray. So fifth round, we got Cooper Kupp, Darrell Henderson, Adam Thielen, TJ Hawkinson, Jamar Chase, and then I secure my wide receiver 2 with DJ Moore. Listen, with the start of this draft, I got a trio of really solid running backs. I got Calvin Ridley, who has the potential to be the wide receiver 1. To have DJ Moore as my fifth round pick, my wide receiver 2, to me, that's perfect. I expect him to be a yardage monster. He really hasn't had much of a nose for the end zone in his career, but if that does come to fruition this year, he gets more touchdowns, he'll be an absolute insane wide receiver 2 for me. But even if he just does what he's historically been doing, he'll be, a solid wide receiver 2. So Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Gaskin, Rodgers, Mark Andrews, and Javonte Williams go off the board next. And other than DJ Moore, I was kind of deciding between deciding between Mark Andrews as well as hoping TJ Hawkinson would fall to me so I could maybe take one of those 2 tight ends, but I did end up going with the wide receiver, just to give you kind of what I was thinking in that draft spot. So next up, we got Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Kyle Pitts, and Robert Tonyan. So quite a few quarterbacks and tight ends going off the board. But I end up getting a quarterback that I'm not going to complain about after Zach Moss and Ayuk go right before me. I take Tom Brady, the GOAT, Super Bowl winner. This offense is insane. He's got a ton of weapons, and as long as age doesn't catch up to him, which it seemingly never will, he should be an awesome quarterback. He doesn't have that elite upside that some of those rushing quarterbacks do, that have a little bit more points for their season total with their legs. But Tom Brady, I expect him to air it out a lot this year. And you can't discount that quarterback sneak that usually it gets him, a couple rushing touchdowns here and there most seasons. So that's also something to consider. But I expect him to have a good year as long as he still continues to defeat Father Time. Next up, James Robinson. Like I mentioned, this draft occurred before the ETN injury. So obviously James Robinson would get a bump in ADP in a draft that was occurring today or moving forward. Next up, we got Ryan Tannehill, Juju, Chase Edmonds, and T. Higgins. And I'm glad I got Tom Brady because, as you'll see later in the draft, to me, Tom Brady and Ryan Tannehill were sort of that last tier of quarterback, and then there's a little bit of a drop-off, so I'm glad I was able to get a quarterback at the end of that tier. Next up, we got Devonta Smith, Chase Claypool, Melvin Gordon, James Conner, Michael Thomas, and then I get a really good value here in the 7th round with Courtland Sutton. He's coming off an injury, but as long as that doesn't hamper him, and as long as that quarterback play with Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock, as long as they can get him the ball, as long as he stays healthy, I expect him to at least have a somewhat decent season, especially as someone who's going to probably be more of a flex play for me that I can throw in off the bench because he's on my bench right now. So I think he's a great player to have on the bench, a lot of upside, and pretty safe floor. So, yeah, I'm really, really happy with that pick. I think that was a steal. Next up, Dallas Goedert, Irv Smith, Kenny Golladay, Robbie Anderson, Michael Pittman, and Odell Beckham. And man, it is weird to see Odell Beckham continue to just fall in ADP. I remember years ago he was going in the first round. Just kind of crazy how things turn out in the NFL. But I also want to mention Dallas Goedert. He is someone who earlier in the offseason I thought would be a real breakout candidate at tight end. But with Zach Ertz there, he's someone that I think they're kind of going to cannibalize each other. I think Zach Ertz is still going to get a healthy amount of targets, even though he didn't look great last year. But that's why I end up going with Sutton over a guy like Dallas Goedert. So that's kind of what I was thinking in round 7. Round 8, we got Curtis Samuel, Michael Carter, Raheem Mostert, not a bad pick there. David Johnson, that probably is a bad pick. I've been hearing he's kind of going to fill the Duke Johnson role, which he didn't really have much of a role. It's kind of going to be a committee with him and Phillip Lindsay, maybe even a little Mark Ingram. So this might have been a wasted pick for Hickey's Heroes. But then Younghoe Koo and Rodrigo Blankenship go off the board. I think these two were actually auto-drafting, and NFL.com just fills your kicker spot instantly right when it needs one. So it's kind of annoying, but I guess that's what they get for auto-drafting. Then I go ahead and take Antonio Brown here, do a little stack attack with him and Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. I don't expect him to have a fantastic, unbelievable wide receiver 1 year just because of all the targets that are there with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown. I think they'll obviously help Tom Brady have a really good passing year, but I think Antonio Brown will have some good weeks here and there, and as just another solid wide receiver depth piece off of the bench, I think he was someone that was kind of an obvious pick for me here. And also, going back to his Pittsburgh days, he was my favorite player in the NFL. I had him in fantasy a couple times. He carried me to a lot of really, really awesome weeks, and I haven't had him a lot just because it was really hard to acquire him in fantasy because he was going really early, and I tended to try to take more running backs earlier. So I thought, you know what, let's add one of my favorite players, one of my favorite fantasy assets to have, because while I do play fantasy football for the competition factor, I also play it to have fun, and AB is one of my favorite players. So I went ahead and added him. Business is booming, baby. So then we got Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Leonard Fournette, and Ronald Jones. Little Tampa Bay running back duo goes back-to-back, and then Jalen Hurts ends out the 8th round. Next up, we got Jerry Jeudy, Matt Stafford. So again, like I said, it went Tom Brady, then Tannehill, a little bit of a gap, and then Matt Stafford goes off. I think he could have a good year. He's been having some injury problems of late, new offense, but it could be an explosive offense. So I am glad I got Tom Brady, though, a couple rounds earlier. Rams defense, Marvin Jones, and then Noah Fant goes a pick before me, and I think I would have taken Noah Fant because he kind of, represents a little bit of a tier break at the tight end position. So I wish I could have got him, but I'm not going to complain about getting Deebo Samuel. So off the bench, we got Courtland Sutton, AB, and then Deebo Samuel. And listen, he's a little risky with his injury history. He's really struggled to stay healthy, but when he's on the field, he's really solid. He's got a low average depth of target, but he's really, really good with the ball in his hands after the catch. There's going to be a little bit of, it's kind of hard to see how the target distribution is going to work with Ayuk and George Kittle, but as long as he stays healthy, he'll have his weeks. I could put him in during a bye week. I could put him in the flex, whatever I need from Deebo. He's my man as long as he can stay on the field. That's a big if, though. Pittsburgh, Indianapolis Colts defense. Yeah, my teammates tend to draft kind of weird. And I think, yeah, these guys were auto-drafting. So, again, that's kind of what they get. DJ Chark, Jamal Williams, Jonnu Smith, and Tyler Boyd. You see Jonnu Smith compared to Noah Fant. You can see kind of the tier break at tight end, even in this round. Mike Gesicki, and you'll see in the next round, too, the tight ends really drop off quickly. But it goes Kenyon Drake, Jarvis Landry, Amon-Ra St. Brown goes pretty early here. Sterling Shepard, Darnell Mooney, Marquise Brown. And then I go ahead and take a shot on another running back, my RB4, Trey Sermon for the San Francisco 49ers. I expect Raheem Mostert to be involved, but I also expect Trey Sermon to be involved. Mostert hasn't necessarily been the face of health. So if he were to get injured, just in general, the 49ers struggle with injuries. So I just want to have a little piece of that backfield because I think Trey Sermon will have a role regardless. But if he's able to take that starting job, he could be a league-winning type of running back with the way that Shanahan runs that offense. So to me, that was just a high upside pick, but it could be a whole lot of nothing. But I expect it to be kind of a committee, and he'll have his weeks here and there. So moving forward, we got Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, T.Y. Hilton, Deshaun Watson, and Damian Harris. And again, this draft occurred before the Sony Michel trade in New England, so Damian Harris might get a little bit of an ADP boost as a result of that. Next up, we got Adam Troutman, Devontae Parker, Devin Singletary, J.D. McKissick, Joe Burrow, and then I go ahead and take another running back in a committee, another backup sort of running back. I take A.J. Dillon of the Green Bay Packers. I was actually contemplating taking him in the previous round. I went with Sermon, and it looks like A.J. Dillon fell to the next round. I'm able to scoop him up. Again, I think he'll be in a committee with Aaron Jones in Green Bay. Jamal Williams is no longer there, so I think he'll have a week-to-week complimentary role. Probably nothing too valuable, but if Aaron Jones were to go down with injury, A.J. Dillon's going to step in, and he should dominate. He should be very, very valuable for fantasy if that were to happen, so I figured why not scoop him up. We've seen quite a few backup running backs go in this round, as well as Tony Pollard. We got Kenneth Gainwell, Tariq Cohen, and as well as Alexander Madison to finish out the round. Moving forward to round 12. It's getting a little shallow here. We got Tevin Coleman, Dolphins defense, Jason Sanders, Logan Thomas, Gus Edwards, Gabe Davis, and I go ahead and take a shot with the Jacksonville Jaguars receiving core with Laviska Shenault Jr. They got DJ Chark and Marvin Jones there, so it's a little bit of a crowded receiving core. And this is just more of a shot to kind of see what his role is in the offense. This is someone that I could cut early on to add someone from the waiver wire if he's not involved early. But if he has a role, he's shown some upside in his young career, so he's someone that could be valuable, could be a bye week replacement if things go the right way, but just someone kind of a shot in the dark there. But next we got Naheem Hines, Kirk Cousins, who, hey man, at quarterback in the 12th round, that is not a bad value. We got Gronk, Daniel Carlson, and then Trey Lance. Moving on to round 13, we got Corey Davis, the Ravens defense, Michael Gallup, Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, John Brown, and then I finally take a tight end off the board, Evan Engram. It's not exciting. He's just a starting tight end. He should see a decent amount of targets. Maybe any given week he could catch a touchdown, but I'm not thrilled. But the tight end options are getting really slim here later in the draft because I didn't get any of the big three. I didn't get any of really the next tier or even the next tier after that, so I'm kind of just scraping the bottom of the barrel. Trevor Lawrence goes off the board, Henry Ruggs, Harrison Butker, Gio Bernard, Jalen Reagor, and Terrace Marshall Jr. Moving on to round 14, we have Bryan Edwards, Sony Michel, Paris Campbell, Buffalo Bills defense, Mike Williams, Giovanni Ricci, and I go ahead and take another tight end, back-to-back tight end picks. I take Zach Ertz, as I mentioned earlier when talking about Dallas Goedert. Zach Ertz will see targets. He wasn't really effective last year. I drafted him early. I thought he was a safe, solid tight end one. He really disappointed. He didn't look good on the field. But tight end is a very weak position, so this is kind of the best that was available. As long as he sees a decent amount of targets, which I think he will be somewhat involved, there's really not a lot of other options there in Philadelphia. He could be someone that I use. I don't know. Tight end is horrible. Moving on. Rashad Penny, Harrison Butker, Justin Tucker, Nelson Aguilar, Philip Lindsay, and Greg the Leg Zerline. Moving forward to round 15, we got the Pats defense, Jamison Crowder, McCole Hardman, Cole Beasley, Taysom Hill, and then I take Russell Gage. He is the wide receiver 2 in Atlanta. He's probably going to be the third target behind Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts at tight end, the rookie. He's someone who, even as the wide receiver 3 in Atlanta last year, he had a few good games here and there. He's not someone I expect to have a really great season, but he's someone who should have a decent floor. Just given his role, he should see a decent amount of targets. But yeah, it's not really an exciting pick. We're late in the draft, so I just took someone who should be involved, but he is someone I might eventually just cut to the waiver wire. Kadarius Toney, Cole Kmet, Matt Ryan, Hunter Henry, Samaje Perine, and Latavius Murray. So we got a little depth piece there with Russell Gage. Round 16, we got Allen Lazard, Derek Carr, Big Ben, James White, Cam Newton, Chuba Hubbard. And then again, I just take a guy who should see maybe a decent amount of targets. I got Breshad Perriman. He's someone who you'll see later in the video what I did with him, but I added him to the team. There's not many weapons in Detroit, but I don't expect their offense to be very good. So he's kind of someone you could add if you really believe in him, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how the target distribution goes in Detroit, but he could be a value just because the targets have to go somewhere. Hawkinson can't catch every pass, so we'll see. I spent way too much time talking about Breshad Perriman. Moving on, Damian Williams, Todd Gurley, Baker Mayfield, Elijah Moore, and then Tyler Higbee. Looking back, this is one of my biggest regrets. I wish I would have grabbed Tyler Higbee, especially with him going this late in round 16 and my tight ends being so weak. I probably should have taken him either over Evan Engram or Zach Ertz, but we learn. Final round, we got Justin Fields, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Suckup, Manny Sanders, AJ Green. It's kind of weird to see these guys this late. Back in the day, this would have been quite the steal. And then I go ahead and take a third tight end just because I'm desperate. Blake Jarwin, he was kind of a sleeper heading into last season. I believe he had an ACL injury. He missed the season. And I like Dallas's offense as long as Dak is able to play through his he's recovering from that injury. So as long as that works out, Blake Jarwin, he should be somewhat involved. Maybe we'll catch a touchdown here and there, but he could be someone that I also cut. Then Cairo Santos, Will Lutz, Brandon, a bunch of kickers, and then Mark Ingram is the final pick of the draft. So recapping the draft quickly, I get a steal at pick number 6 with Derrick Henry. Remember, non-PPR league, that's unbelievable in my opinion. Calvin Ridley, David Montgomery, Mike Davis, DJ Moore. So my 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, and flex spots, I'm very confident with them. Mike Davis is he would be going the flex, so he's kind of the biggest question mark of those 5 players. But if you'll see in a little bit, I have a lot of options coming off the bench that could fill that flex spot. Tom Brady, again, I don't think he'll be the quarterback 1, but I expect him to be a quarterback 1, as in a top 12 quarterback. Courtland, Sutton, Antonio Brown, Deebo Samuel, those are 3 options that I can put in the flex and feel confident that they will be involved. They will have a chance of getting a good, healthy amount of receptions, getting a good yardage total, and getting in the end zone. So to me, I love my wide receiver depth. My running back depth is also amazing. I got a trio of 3 really solid running backs. Well, hey man, Derrick Henry's beyond solid. And then I got some upside here with my RB4 and 5, Trey Sermon and AJ Dillon. They might be involved enough in a committee to be an RB4 or RB5, someone that I could put in there if I'm desperate. But if there's an injury that happens or if Trey Sermon grabs that lead role, they could be league winners. So to me, late in the draft, I love to look for upside like that. Whereas early in the draft, I like to go really, really solid, just consistent production that I know I'm going to get if injury doesn't happen. And then we got Shenault, another wide receiver dart throw. Load up on a couple tight ends at the end of the draft, Evan Engram, Zach Ertz, and Blake Jarwin. Hopefully one of them does something, but I'm going to be streaming tight end this season unless I am able to somehow add a crazy waiver wire savior, but that probably won't happen. And we got a couple more wide receiver depth pieces here, Russell Gage and Breshad Perriman. We'll take a look at the team as a whole here. This is the squad, and just looking at the lineup, hey man, there's not much to complain about. We've got Zach Ertz at tight end, and that's really the only weakness, but a lot of teams are weak at tight end. I might be the weakest, but I really, really like the rest of my team. I already talked about the depth, and I did go ahead and actually drop Breshad Perriman and pick up the Denver Broncos defense. It was between them. They play the Giants, Jaguars, and Jets to start the year, and the 49ers. I could have just clicked on one of my players here. Boom, Jeff Wilson. The 49ers play the Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles. So those are 2 kind of nice defensive ads to put on the squad. But yeah, this is the team. This is our week 1 matchup right here. He definitely has the quarterback and tight end advantage, but the rest of my team I really, really like. So, and obviously Tom Brady's still beyond a competent quarterback, as long as, he's still doing what he can do into his 40s. But yeah, this is the squad. Let me know what you think. But yeah, this is the draft recap for this 2021 League of Bros non-PPR draft. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to comment down below what you think about this squad, if you would have made any changes to the team. I honestly really think that I like this team a lot. Usually, like I said, I draft first overall for some reason, and I play that game where you go back-to-back picks and you wait forever to get the next pick. So it was actually really nice to be sort of in the middle of the draft, and I'm able to play the ADP game a little bit, hope players fall to me. And honestly, a lot of players did fall to me. There were a couple tight ends here and there, a couple other players, but overall, I really got a lot of the players that I wanted at my ADP or at my draft position based on the players' ADP. So yeah, this is a solid team in my opinion. So yeah, make sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and again, comment down below what you think about the team. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you later. Peace out.